Hi, I'm Hunter.
And I'm Zane Butler.
This is Analyzing the Ambient Mind.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about some of the philosophers and philosophies that have influenced us. We kind of touched on that last episode, among lots of other things. We're going to be talking, real specifics today. And I think I'll start off with someone I teased last week, which is my favorite philosopher, Diogenes the Cynic. Diogenes of Sinop, also, as he is known. This guy, if you know anything about him, he's quite popular on the internet for being sort of just a smelly homeless man who lived in a barrel, walked around Greece, sort of did whack shit all the time. But, somewhere in there is actually a very interesting philosophy, which I'd like to talk about because Diogenes was basically one with cynicism, one with his philosophy, and that's something I kind of strive to do, is everything I believe, live up to that, live up to my ideals as what I think is the best I can be. And so his idea of living his best life was sleeping in a barrel surrounded by a bunch of dogs, eating in the marketplace where people found that a bit rude, and taking a shit wherever he wanted. But besides that, he had a lot of cool things to not say. There's not a lot of stuff he's said, and he never really wrote any books. But he would, for example, carry around a lantern in the middle of the day and sort of wave it around at people, and when they asked him, dude, what are you doing? He'd be like, oh, I'm just looking for an honest man. And he just sort of roasted everyone in Greece because he almost saw them as kind of pretentious, they were, they thought themselves better than a lot of other things on Earth, and he was like, nah, we're the same as all the animals, and we're just a part of nature. And so he kind of did what nature told him to, which is kind of like what his body told him to. He was like, I have to take a piss. Just take a piss right here. I gotta eat. Well, there's a garbage can with some food in it. Well, they didn't have garbage cans, but the 400 BCE equivalent of a garbage can. And his whole thing was nature. And I want to talk. I talk a lot about the good stuff of cynicism, but I do agree Diogenes was a bit of an asshole. He another part of cynicism, besides just acting in accordance to nature, is shamelessness. Sort of like you don't care what other people think of you. And I kind of agree on some level, but I feel like he took it a bit far, because he was just a very dirty guy, and he would, like I said, he'd just take a piss wherever, which isn't nice. It's not considerate, which I guess technically for him, he didn't really give a shit.
Etiquettes didn't apply to him or
Yeah,
anything
no,
like
well,
that.
he saw society as regressive. He's like, this doesn't make us better. And so he was just like, all right, everything the society does, I'm not gonna do. And so he just did whatever. And there's a lot of stuff he did. I don't know, I kind of trailed off there at the end. You got someone you want to talk about, Hunter?
Yeah, so, I mean, someone I reference a lot is Terrence McKenna.
Yeah, I think you mentioned him last time.
So I was supposed to do a little homework, but I kind of slacked on that, and I kind of watched a little video. So
hey, I mean, we both kind of slacked.
Yeah, so this is what I got for you guys today. Terrence McKenna, he talks about the final illusion, which is something he heard a couple kids singing outside when he was in the Amazon rainforest, and he asked his translator what is that, while he was in this feverish stomach ache, and he said what it translates to is behold, behold the final illusion, it's finally here, the final illusion. And Terrence McKenna took it in an interesting way, and he talks about Roncalli and Gallo and like
Galileo.
Galileo, yeah. So Galileo has these rooftop parties where he showcases his telescope, and he has Roncalli, this church official, there, and they're looking at the moon, and jokingly Galileo kind of says, oh, we have a sister planet, and Roncalli doesn't really know how to perceive that, he's like, he just kind of stands there for a couple minutes, and then he says something along the lines of, like, well, we have to agree, like, that's just like a hallucination, and like, sure enough, they disagree. They do not agree on that, And so it's a big problem, but he takes it a step further to like argue that we can't agree with like what we're perceiving. Like, it could be a hallucination, but there's no way to like confirm that.
Yeah, no.
So in a way, it's like a true hallucination and like almost a delusion,
Great, you've got me thinking about reality again.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I really like that, the sort of idea that like reality can be an illusion that you won't outlast.
But like,
but no, yeah, I get that. And like, I remember a while ago, I kind of still kind of believe this, but like the idea of like sensory deprivation kind of relates to that, I think, in a way where it's like, even though you don't really like, you can't feel anything. It's like just yourself, but then you start like hallucinating and shit. And that's like, as far as that's reality.
Yeah, well, like, and it's funny because like Terrence McKenna talks about like dosing like 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms in a closet with like an empty stomach, and like that would be like
That's
a
hardcore.
sensory deprivation tank like times 10 because your mind is just now going.
Well, yeah.
And like,
Jesus.
I wouldn't do that personally.
No, that sounds pretty
But like,
intense.
he said that's how you would experience what like psilocybin is actually like. But so you gotta like say Terrence McKenna, he was out there. He was kind of whack.
He was one hell of a psychonaut.
He had some like cool points. Like, he advocated the exploration of like altered states of consciousness, but like he was also about like responsible use of like psychoactive substances,
Yeah,
like,
no, I find like that shamanism type stuff like really interesting because it's like, I go back to religion a lot. But religion, like, that's how religions were kind of like formed like tens of thousands of years ago. And so like even now that can give us insight into things we should believe or think about.
Yeah, and like he would take it a step further too. He would say not just like using it in a responsible manner, but like respecting the plant, like, or like whatever you were using, the substance, not to necessarily use it to like get fucked up, but to use it to like discover something,
Yeah, it was like a sort of like, not like a spiritual respect for it, like the plant, like kind of, I wouldn't say like it's the same as like, some cultures that like respect animals they like kill, like while they're hunting or anything.
Yeah, maybe not exactly that, but like
yeah, like the certain like, you have allowed me to do this, and it's like learn about myself or whatever you're trying to, unravel in your mind.
Yeah, and then he would like talk about analyzing like your trip afterwards and like journaling and stuff like that to like really break it down. And like,
well, speaking of like analyzing things that are trippy, continuing on, I was listening to that what was it, the Final Illusion thing you were listening to, and we literally paused it and we were like, okay, what the hell did he just say? And we like had to break it down. We were like Googling things and like,
yeah, he was
he's
talking
got a lot
about like
of information.
the dead body of Eros being thrown out of Greece, and like,
I don't know exactly what he was talking about there.
I know, I think there was more of some symbolism going on there, but like,
sure.
Like, in all honesty, I couldn't keep up with him at that moment in time.
No, well, like, and so something I've noticed he does a lot is, like, he mixes a lot of different mythologies together because it's, like, all of them are sort of, like, equivalent and parallel. And so he'll just throw, like, some, like, a little bit of, like, Christian mythology in there with some little bit of, like, old-style Greek mythology.
Yeah, Maybe he's just
Like,
trying to
more-
reach more people.
well,
in
and
that
also
way.
just it's not really like he actually believes that sort of stuff, but he's more using it as like a metaphor,
Mhm.
like you said earlier. Like, we were talking about the dead body of Oros and how that's the proper name for Cupid, and
Mhm.
how like love is one of the first gods that were born, and just this whole complicated thing where he was talking about how like people might be chasing love for the final solution or something like that.
the
And
final illusion.
the final illusion, not the final solution. But
Mhm.
yeah, crazy stuff. And I was listening to one of his things. What was he talking about? He was talking about, I don't know, like magic or something.
Was it like maybe the alchemy, like alchaic philosophy of like Mercury and stuff like
Maybe,
that?
dude. I have no idea.
He has a lot of interesting like views, but something I respect him is he talks about ancestors a lot
Oh,
in his
interesting.
talks, and how like people from back then have a tremendous influence on us now,
Uh-huh.
and like sometimes we don't realize that.
In what way? Is it in like a
Like
in like a
in the way like they steered society in a
Okay,
certain
yeah,
way,
yeah.
and if they didn't do that, we wouldn't be in the same place now, type of deal.
No, yeah, I get that. And like sometimes I think about that type of weird stuff. Like I know probably like 3 or 4 generations back in my family, but after that it's a complete mystery.
That's
Like-
so
like-
weird how
and it's
that
just
can
like-
happen.
Yeah, like thousands of years worth of people kind of led up to me being here now, but I don't really know their names or who they were or what they did, but that's just how it kind of ended up being.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's such a trip thinking about that.
Does he have the whole ancestor thing? Is it like a more, I don't know, is it like an easterny sort of thing where he's like, it's like, sort of like deep family connections?
Well, like
And
he talks about when he goes to the Amazon and he does these rituals with these shamans, like they will tell you like you go visit the ancestors.
oh, okay, I like that.
And like he says like in a way it's like time travel, but
Uh-huh.
not exactly. Like you're like
Yeah.
going somewhere else for a little bit and you're experiencing something else.
It's a different reality almost than the one
Almost,
you're
yeah.
used to.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if ancestors could even mean not even someone who's directly related to you, just
Yeah.
like past, consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I was doing some research on Soma from the Vedas at one time, and they don't talk about ancestors, but they talk about spirits and gods a
Mhm.
lot. And it's like, when they drink the Soma, they go to like the place of the gods and they meet them and stuff like that.
Well, like my interpretation of that is like everybody is going to interpret that realm or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
When you go there, everyone's going to see something different, and it might even be the same thing, but they're going to perceive it in a different way, So like the gods and spirits could easily be interpreted as ancestors
Yeah.
to someone else,
It's interesting that there's patterns like that within people's consciousness. It's like you can sort of like you're subconsciously kind of not directed, but like you're thinking like, oh, meeting other people, humans on another plane. I don't know.
And then, believe it or not, but like one of Terence McKenna's favorite philosophers was actually Heraclitus.
Yeah,
So,
no.
like I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, like out of everybody in philosophy, and Heraclitus, he's not the most famous guy. I mean, he's fairly famous, but like it's for someone like Terence McKenna, it's weird that he was just like, oh, the guy who did like probably 0 drugs and doesn't talk about that sort of stuff at all. But Heraclitus is all about like part of his philosophy is like movement and change and how everything is constantly changing.
Kind of like would entropy be a good example
Yeah,
of that,
yeah.
or like
Well, that goes back to the whole the Eros thing we were talking about earlier. If love was the 4th god, right? Chaos was one of the first as well, which is also could be considered change.
Yeah.
And entropy and chaos could be considered
Dude.
the same thing.
That's weird because that kind of circles back to some of my other philosophy of like there's creation and then there's like destruction. But with destruction. Or no, so it's creation and then maintenance.
Oh.
But over time, everything will like be destructed, you know?
That's very interesting.
With destruction is breaking of stuff comes new stuff. So new stuff can be created.
Okay.
So it's a cycle of creation, maintenance, and destruction.
I have something very interesting to tell you about then. So, I think this is right. I don't have anything in front of me. Here, let me look it up.
But yeah, like that's a, I don't know, part of my philosophy is all around that. It's like that creation.
So in Hindu philosophy, the sort of main like three gods that are also one is Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva, who are the creator, the protector, and the destroyer, which is a very interesting, again, like sort of pattern within philosophy.
Yeah.
Where, and that's weird because it very much opposes my philosophy, which is that everything both is and isn't at the same time.
Yeah.
There's sort of like there was never creation, but there was also never destruction. I don't know.
It's weird, yeah.
That was I really like that though. That you kind of brought up a completely different topic from a completely unrelated source.
Yeah.
Okay, what were you talking about? Heraclitus?
Yes.
Okay, so Heraclitus, he said a lot of stuff. Like it was all about like change.
Yeah, change and entropy, that's where we were at.
Yeah, change and entropy. There was this one comic I read that Sam sent me a while ago, and I haven't read it, but it was really trippy. It was all about entropy, and like I think entropy is different than like the common definition of it. Like, what would you think entropy is?
I honestly couldn't tell you, but like I feel like a good example of entropy is like how cords get tangled.
Yeah, no, dude, I feel that.
Like through time and like movement, like it changes, you know.
Well, like the pop culture definition of entropy is like the universe tends towards chaos.
Okay.
But I would argue that it just tends towards change, which just happens to look like chaos. Like randomness and chaos might as well be the same thing.
Okay, I could see that.
And so like, I don't know, because like I learned about entropy in chemistry, and I didn't pay too much attention in that class, but it was not like the whole like, you know, chaos thing. It was more like balance. Or no, that was equilibrium. I don't know, man. I did not pay attention in chemistry.
Dang.
What was there's this one thing I had written down from Heraclitus that was very, very interesting that I put in a lot of different stuff. Okay, I'll paraphrase it if I can't find it. Okay, so he said I think he said something along the lines of, to a god all things are fair, good, and just, but people hold some things wrong and some right.
Okay.
So it's more like, and this was like before people really believed in a monotheistic God. And it says here that's more accurate to speak of the divine. And that's more like as opposed to humanity. I don't know. But like so even then he could be referring to several gods. And you know, it's like Zeus thinks everything is fair and right and just because it's like that's the way the universe was created. So that must be the fair way. And then we're like, no, some things are right and some things are wrong, which is a very interesting thing. And I think Diogenes probably thought very similarly, where he's like, you know, why would some things be right and wrong when we can do all of these things no matter what? I feel like that's kind of my my feeling about I know this is a dumb like comparison, but like cursing. It's like it's so arbitrary that people are just like, nah, you can't say fuck in polite conversation, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. But like yeah, that's the idea, is like, you know, things aren't
like social norms and etiquettes and stuff like that, maybe.
That's something I find just very weird in general.
Yeah.
A lot of like I can understand some things, a lot of things. Like my morality is very basic, but it's very straightforward at the same time. Well, basic and straightforward mean the same thing, but it's like there's not a lot of things like I personally find like, you know, disrespectful and stuff, or like rude. But there's like, you know, I have like, most of all is like, you know, pacifism, peace, and it's just like, you know, just don't fuck with people is sort of my,
Like the Bill and Ted, like
yeah, just be excellent
be excellent.
to each other. And like I think the world would be a lot much more of like an easier place to live if we just didn't think kind of selfishly all the time. You have anything else to add, Hunter?
Nah.
All right, well, let's wrap it up then. Thanks for watching episode 2 of Analyzing the Ambient Mind. Next week we'll have a special guest on. Maybe we'll have a topic we'll talk about, or we'll just talk about what their philosophy is. Hunter, do you have a quote to leave us on?
Yeah, so today I have a quote from Hunter S. Thompson, and it goes, "I learned a long time ago that reality was much weirder than anyone's imagination." And I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, for real.